It's a normal day at one of the biggest oil refineries in the United States. 1,800 people are at work. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the plant. The blast is felt 5 miles away. Dozens of people are injured. 15 are dead. A desperate rescue operation gets underway. The nation's worst industrial disaster in 15 years shatters a close-knit community. Now a team of investigators has to find out what went wrong. Human error, design flaw, or terrorist attack. Disasters don't just happen. They're triggered by a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. The United States, Texas, Galveston Bay. Every second, the U.S. burns nearly 4,000 gallons of gasoline, almost half of the world's production, and much of it passes through this complex of refineries. On the front line of this multi-billion-dollar industry, 35 miles southeast of Houston, lies Texas City. 40,000 people live clustered around 3 giant refineries. One of them belongs to the world's second biggest oil company, British Petroleum, or BP. It provides jobs for nearly 2,000 workers, sprawls over 2 square miles, and processes up to 11 million gallons of gasoline a day. With this much flammable liquid, there is always potential for disaster. The oil industry has strict safety guidelines, and with good reason.
There might have been some other explosions.
That just exploded. That was 3 pipes.
Since the 70s, more than 100 oil workers have died in industrial accidents across the U.S. BP's Texas City refinery has a questionable safety record. Workers have been killed here on at least 6 separate occasions. In September 2004, 2 workers were scalded to death. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration found BP guilty of a willful violation of industry safety guidelines. Now, BP claims it has improved its safety standards.
There is no limit to the amount of activity that we've undertaken in Texas City to make it a very safe plant.
Since 9/11, there's a new threat. Growing demand for gasoline has left the U.S. with little to spare. An attack here could cripple the world's biggest economy. As a result, the FBI now regards this cluster of refineries as one of the nation's top 5 terrorist targets. March 23, 2005, the BP Oil Refinery. At 2 a.m., night shift operators at the BP refinery work on a distillation tower. For the last month, it's been shut down for routine maintenance. But now it has to be started up again. The startup process can take up to 12 hours, and most of it has to be done manually. The risk of human error makes it one of the most dangerous jobs in any refinery. The tower's function is to distill raw fuel into its heavier and lighter components. To distill raw fuel, oil is pumped into the tower and heated by a furnace, causing lighter components to evaporate. Vapor rises to the top of the tower and is channeled out through a pipe. Then it passes through a condenser, which returns it to liquid form before being pumped away. This will be added to the gasoline to make it more potent. The heavier residue left at the bottom of the tower is siphoned off and used to make products like tar. If the distillation process creates too much vapor, operators can lower the pressure by venting excess gases. These eventually reach a safety outlet, or blowdown stack. Just after 2 a.m., operators pump raw fuel into the tower. It's a hazardous process. The liquid is highly flammable. 1 hour later, an alarm goes off in the control room. The operator has pumped more fuel than recommended at this point in the process into the tower. Against safety guidelines, the operator shuts off the alarm and continues filling the tower for another 15 minutes. It's an unofficial but routine shortcut. At 5 a.m., an hour before sunrise, construction engineer David Crow arrives at work. His office is in a 70-foot trailer, dangerously close to the blowdown stack. He's only worked at the BP refinery for 8 months, but David and his wife Georgine have become close friends with his co-workers.
They were all buddies. There was no problems. Everybody got along.
Among David's friends are James and Linda Rowe. James is a department superintendent. 6 months ago, his wife Linda quit her job as a teacher to work with her husband at the refinery. Their daughter Eva lives 250 miles away, but she still shares a special bond with her mom.
My mom, she was my best friend, like my sister, you know, and my mom all in one.
At 10 minutes to 10, the workers at the distillation tower change shifts. The computer shows that the liquid level has dropped to normal. The supervisor moves on to the next phase of the startup process. An operator feeds more fuel into the tower. Minutes later, the supervisor gets a phone call. His son broke his arm at school. He turns control over to a colleague. At 10 a.m., operators light burners on the tower's furnace, which starts the distillation process by heating the liquid feeding into the tower. From this point on, most functions are automated. The most hazardous part of the process is over. Just before 1 p.m., workers relax near the distillation tower. It's been a week without accidents, and as a reward, BP's management buys them lunch. As the workers eat, a white pickup truck approaches the main processing unit. It's one of many trucks in the refinery, and nobody pays attention to it. Among the workers are Ralph Dean and his wife, Alyssa. Ralph has been on staff for 8 months as a rigging supervisor. Alyssa works as an office manager in the nearby trailer.
Everybody's having a great time. Free lunch, free food, construction workers, yeah, it was great.
After lunch, David Crow calls everyone into the trailer for a routine maintenance meeting. As Alyssa joins them, the white pickup truck parks near the blowdown stack. The driver leaves the engine running and slips away. The workers are now in grave danger. One of the world's biggest oil refineries is on the brink of catastrophe. At the BP refinery in Texas City, operators have been starting up a distillation tower for the last 11 hours. The high-risk procedure seems to be going well. But around 1:30, workers are alarmed to see a pool of liquid seeping under a white pickup truck. They don't know what it is, but chances are it's flammable. The truck's engine is revving, but the driver is nowhere to be seen. Workers run for cover, fearing the worst. Nearby, Ralph Dean operates a forklift. His wife Alyssa is in a trailer with 21 other workers, including her friends David, Linda, and James. None of them hear the commotion outside. Suddenly, an explosion rips through the trailer.
I've never heard a noise that loud, extremely violent. It was biblical.
The impact of the blast is felt 5 miles away. Just outside Texas City, David Crow's wife, Georgine, is busy at work. Within minutes of the explosion, local TV stations are on the scene.
In case anyone is just joining us, you are looking at live pictures from Texas City.
Georgine recognizes her husband's workplace.
Your heart is racing. My stomach started feeling queasy. I don't know, I think I wanted to scream.
Panicked, she calls her husband David. But he doesn't pick up his cell phone or the landline in the trailer.
The concern now that perhaps the fatality count, unfortunately, could be going up.
Immediately following the explosion, Ralph Dean realizes that his wife is in the trailer. He races over to find her, but she's nowhere to be seen.
I can't recall feeling anything. The single thought that I can remember the whole time was find her and get out.
David Crow is also in the trailer. He's unconscious and trapped under the debris. His foot is fractured, his heel is crushed, and he's broken 6 vertebrae. But if he doesn't get out quickly, he'll burn to death. As he regains consciousness, he struggles to free himself. Despite his injuries, he drags himself away from the wreckage. He sees Ralph searching for his wife, Alyssa. Neither man can make sense of his surroundings.
There was nothing you could recognize, nothing. Everything was just torn to bits. It was probably outside the military, the worst thing you'll ever see. It was hell on earth.
Meanwhile, Eva Rowe is on her way to Texas City to visit her parents, James and Linda. She has no idea that a massive explosion tore through the refinery. It's just a few days before Easter, and she's looking forward to spending the holiday with her family.
I was in a really good mood, just driving along, enjoying the day.
But Eva's day is about to take a drastic turn. Her parents were caught in the blast, along with Ralph's wife, Alyssa, and Georgine's husband, David. Not all of them will survive. An explosion at the BP Oil Refinery in Texas City destroys an area of several thousand square yards. The force is felt 5 miles away. A massive rescue operation is launched.
BP dispatch. Please go ahead. How many life flights do you have in the eye? We have one. Do you need more? Request them all.
200 firefighters descend on the refinery.
The scene, to me, looked like a nuclear explosion had gone off. It just wiped everything out. There are things I saw that day that most people will never see in their lifetime and hopefully never will.
To make matters worse, millions of gallons of flammable materials are within yards of the fire. David Crow lies crippled, choking on the fumes. Miraculously, 2 colleagues stumble across him and drag him to safety.
How in the world did I get out of that? Why me? Why was I spared? I believe we all have guardian angels. And one was with me that day.
Nearby, Ralph Dean is still searching for his wife, Alyssa.
All I can think of is digging. It's like I'm digging and I'm not getting anywhere.
Suddenly, he sees debris he recognizes from his wife's office. Beneath it, he finds Alyssa. A piece of heavy furniture shielded her from the blast. She's unconscious, but still breathing. But James and Linda Rowe are still missing. Their daughter Eva, now only 45 minutes away, is unaware of the explosion.
There has been apparently a major explosion. We understand from one of the witnesses who called us that it is at the BP Refinery.
When she hears the news, she immediately calls her mother. But there's no answer.
I knew that something was wrong because she always answered. And that time she didn't. I wish she would have. I wish she would have answered.
Back at the blast site, it takes firefighters more than 2 hours to extinguish the blaze. The third biggest refinery in the U.S. is a smoldering wreck. 170 people are injured. 15 are dead. 11 died in the trailer. But it's still not clear if Eva's parents are among them. Many of the bodies are burned beyond recognition. The following day, Eva's asked to provide her parents' medical records. Neither of them survived.
I began trembling immediately, like my whole body was just shaking uncontrollably. My hands, and my arms, and my legs. I couldn't force myself to be still. And it didn't go away for over 6 months. The trembling didn't go away.
Survivors of the blast are also traumatized.
I guess what probably haunts me more than anything, I wasn't able to do anything. For a good while there, I had dreams and I was talking to my friends. I'm not sure how rational that sounds, but it did. It bothered me.
Texas City is grief-stricken. What could have triggered this nightmare? Now, by going deep into the official investigation, we can reveal the chain of events that led to the Texas City explosion. The first officials on the scene are FBI agents. They arrive within hours of the disaster. In an era of global terrorism, the FBI is suspicious of any major explosion. The Texas oil industry is a particular concern. Since 9/11, these refineries are considered high-value targets. The agents fear this disaster could be the start of a new wave of domestic terrorism. They talk to eyewitnesses for clues and become suspicious when they hear about the white pickup truck. Several witnesses recall hearing the truck's engine revving loudly, though there was no driver in the vehicle. As the investigation moves forward, statements from other eyewitnesses shed more light on the case. Six minutes before the explosion, liquid was spewing out of the blowdown stack just 30 feet from where the pickup truck was parked. The overflowing liquid could explain the mystery of the revving engine. Normally, an engine's carburetor blends clean air with fuel, which ignites, causing the engine to run. But the truck wasn't taking in ordinary air. Its engine was flooded with petrochemical fumes from the escaping liquid. This could have caused it to rev without a driver. A single spark from the running engine is all it would take to ignite the vapor. Terrorism no longer seems likely. Since the escaping fluid probably caused the blast, the FBI hands the investigation over to a new team. 1,200 miles away in Washington, D.C., is the Chemical Safety and Hazard Investigation Board, or CSB. It was formed in 1998 to investigate industrial accidents. The CSB team includes chemical and mechanical engineers, industrial safety experts, and other specialists. Many investigators have years of chemical industry experience. The CSB arrives in Texas City the day after the explosion. The team is led by Chief Investigator Don Holmstrom, a leading expert in petrochemical safety. Over the last decade, he's investigated a series of major accidents. He's known to the press as a safety evangelist and is well equipped to handle this high-profile investigation.
A catastrophic incident of this magnitude certainly focuses a lot of attention from the media, from the public in general, on an international level.
But progress will be slow. Key witnesses are either dead or injured. Much of the evidence has been destroyed in the explosion, and the blast site is unsafe. But eyewitness testimony has established that the blowdown stack is at the center of the disaster. It's the source of the liquid that seeped under the white pickup truck. As the final safety outlet for the distillation tower, the blowdown stack is supposed to vent gases and contain small quantities of liquid. Fluid should never overflow from the 114-foot stack. Something obviously went wrong. The team starts gathering physical evidence from the site. They need to find the computer hard drive from the main processing unit, which holds a complete electronic record of the distillation process. But investigators don't know when it'll be safe for them to move in. The explosion has released cancer-causing benzene gas that could take days to disperse. The U.S. oil industry wants answers. Could this catastrophe be repeated elsewhere? Identical distillation towers exist in refineries across the U.S. If they're unsafe, the entire industry could be crippled. Because of the uncertainty, gas prices hit an all-time high, and the world's biggest economy hangs in the balance. An explosion rocks the British Petroleum Oil Refinery in Texas City. 170 people are injured, 15 are dead. The FBI rules out a terrorist attack. Don Holmstrom and his team from the Chemical Safety Board are trying to uncover what went wrong. The disaster can be traced to flammable liquid spewing out of the blowdown stack. The stack is connected to the distillation tower, and Holmstrom suspects that's where the liquid came from. But how it could have reached the blowdown stack in the first place is a mystery. During the distillation process, liquid in the tower shouldn't exceed 6.5 feet. To escape, it has to rise more than 150 feet above its correct level. But there's a series of safeguards to prevent this from happening. First, an outlet control valve automatically regulates the flow of liquid from the bottom of the tower. If the tower begins to overfill, the valve opens wider and the level goes down again. Second, a level indicator provides operators in the control room with a constant update on how full the tower is. And an alarm goes off if the tower starts to overfill. With a second backup alarm, the system should be foolproof. But if Holmstrom's suspicions are correct, all of these safeguards must have failed. To find out what was going on in the tower before the blast, he questions eyewitnesses and learns that the distillation tower was being started up on the same day as the explosion. Although the startup is governed by strict safety guidelines, it's a potentially risky process that could have led to the explosion. Holmstrom questions the operators who worked on the startup and discovers that a night shift operator broke the safety guidelines. Just after 3 a.m., an alarm goes off in the control room, warning that the liquid level is slightly over 8 feet. But the operator switches it off and does nothing. He tells Holmstrom that overfilling the tower and ignoring the alarm is common practice. When the feed starts circulating through the system, the level in the tower often falls. By overfilling the tower, he not only saves time, he avoids the inconvenience of having to refill it later. He leaves the level at about 13 feet, confident it will drop when the day shift operator starts to circulate the feed. This clear breach of safety procedures could be linked to the explosion. But when Holmstrom questions the day shift operator, the man supports his colleague. While on duty, he keeps his eye on the level indicator and sees nothing to concern him. It consistently shows a level of less than 10 feet. This line of questioning seems to be leading Holmstrom to a dead end. So he looks closer at the design of the level indicator and makes his first breakthrough. The level indicator has a fatal design flaw. It can only measure liquid up to a height of 10 feet. Anything above that doesn't register. And even worse, if the liquid exceeds 10 feet, the indicator could show a drop in level. So the operator's testimony doesn't prove that the startup was safe. But even allowing for these mistakes, there should be enough safeguards to prevent an explosion. A second alarm situated above the first should go off if the liquid level passes 8.5 feet. Yet no one remembers hearing it. Holmstrom goes through BP's work orders and discovers another critical error. The second alarm is reported as damaged before the explosion, and there's no record of it being fixed. Of the tower's 2 high-level alarms, one was deactivated, and the other never worked in the first place. But even with the alarm system out of operation, there are other safeguards to prevent excess liquid from rising in the tower. The liquid level is regulated automatically by an outlet control valve. If the level gets too high, the valve automatically opens wider to allow more liquid out of the tower. Without access to the blast site, investigators can't be sure that the valve is faulty. But the day shift operator tells Holmstrom that liquid did flow out of the tower at a normal rate. He also learns that the operator doesn't check the valve regularly. It's a serious oversight, but by itself, not enough to account for the disaster. Safety guidelines dictate that a supervisor should always be on hand to oversee the flow of liquid during startup. Holmstrom makes another breakthrough when he speaks to the supervisor. Just before 10 o'clock, he receives a phone call that his son broke his arm. He leaves his post and hands over control to a colleague. Holmstrom interviews the replacement supervisor, who makes a shocking admission. He has never handled a startup before, and he failed to make note of the flow out of the tower. Holmstrom has uncovered slack operating practices, poorly maintained equipment, and a supervisor who left his post at a critical moment. There's no question in Holmstrom's mind that the flawed startup is to blame for the explosion. But he needs firm evidence to prove it. April 1st, 2005. 1 week after the explosion, the team is finally cleared to enter the blast site. Investigators sift through the debris, taking 200 photographs, as well as video footage. Though much of the evidence was destroyed in the blast, the hard drive from the tower's control room is intact. It's the equivalent of an aircraft's black box and contains an electronic record of everything that happened in the tower. Holmstrom immediately examines data from the outlet control valve and discovers it's at the heart of the problem. Instead of being set to auto, the valve is left closed. It doesn't regulate the flow of liquid out of the tower. At 9:52 a.m., the day shift operator starts the feed. For 3 hours, he pumps liquid into the tower, failing to notice none is flowing out. The tower's pressure relief valves are forced open, and liquid escapes down the gas pipes to the blowdown stack. Holmstrom's hunch is correct. A catastrophic series of mistakes in the startup process did cause the disaster. BP accepts responsibility for the blast. But 2 months later, they pin most of the blame on low-level workers, which frustrates many in Texas City. They know the poor safety record of the BP refinery and feel that management has made scapegoats out of their co-workers. Don Holmstrom agrees that it's unreasonable to blame a handful of people.
The problem with blaming an individual is that one could come to the conclusion that, well, we got rid of the individual and all our problems are solved.
To determine how long these safety problems have existed, Holmstrom returns to the computer hard drive found in the wreckage. It holds a complete record of the tower's previous startups. He discovers a frightening history of close calls. The records prove that the night shift operator is telling the truth. It is common practice to ignore safety guidelines during the startup process. Out of 16 previous startups, 13 had liquid levels above 10 feet, the range of the level indicator. Any of these could have ended in disaster, but managers at the refinery failed to properly investigate the malpractice.
Certainly the safety culture as it existed before the incident left a lot to be desired.
Next, Holmstrom focuses on the trailer where most of the victims died. How could BP justify placing it just 40 yards from the blowdown stack, especially since workers have died this way before? In 1995, at a Oil Refinery in Pennsylvania, a trailer is located near 2 large storage tanks. When the tanks explode, 5 workers are killed. The resulting investigation warns against placing trailers near flammable materials. But BP's risk calculations show that because the trailer was empty most of the year, the risk to employees was low. Lax safety practices and employees left dangerously exposed are a lethal combination. But they're nothing new to Texas City.
The problems that existed at Texas City had been present for many years. Safety was very problematic at the plant. Workers were concerned about coming to work because of the risk of catastrophic incidents.
It shouldn't be necessary to go to work every day and under the threat of death. This refinery's been killing people for years. Obviously, it was built on evil ground. They need to shut it down and put a marble statue with all the names of the dead in front of it and just walk away from it.
Even before this explosion, the Texas City plant is the most dangerous oil refinery in the U.S. Since the 1970s, accidents here have killed more than 30 workers.
I think these events are unrelated. There has been a few, and we regret each one.
But as the investigation continues, the trail takes an unexpected turn to BP's most senior executives. The worst worst industrial accident in a decade has killed 15 workers at BP's Texas City Oil Refinery.
A lot of folks worried about their loved ones right now, Jerome.
A tragic, tragic day in Texas City.
Don Holmstrom and his team from the Chemical Safety Board are investigating a history of fatalities at the plant. Despite BP's claims to be dealing with its poor safety record, the team finds evidence to the contrary. In 1998, an internal memo from BP's board in London orders all refinery managers to cut operating costs by 25%. And this cost cutting is linked to the disaster. The final safety outlet in the distillation process is a blowdown stack. Despite the errors that occurred during the startup, an effective safety outlet could have averted the tragedy. But the blowdown stack is an ancient design, more than 50 years old. Holmstrom discovers that in 2002, BP decided against replacing the stack with a modern safety flare system. This cutting-edge model is able to deal with overflowing liquid, while a flare burns off excess gas. The new design would have prevented the disaster.
This is a case of a company denying the risk. They knew the hazards, they were aware of them, but when they had the opportunity to take action, they did not do so.
Replacing the blowdown stack would have cost less than $6 million, about 1 day of production at the Texas City refinery. For the people who worked there, it would have been a small price to pay.
It's people. People are the most important thing. Not the plant, not the corporation itself. It's the people.
It took 6 months for David Crow to walk normally again. He's still in pain from his injuries. But his emotional scars will take the longest to heal.
He's not the same person. He was a very laid-back, easygoing kind of guy, and now he's very angry at the loss of his friends. It's causing us a lot of problems.
Like David, Ralph Dean's wife, Alyssa, broke her back. Her gallbladder had to be removed, and 20% of her body was burned. For several weeks, doctors told Ralph she might not survive.
My wife's gonna have to live with this for the rest of her life. I mean, it's just a part of our life that's just always gonna be there. Well, hell yes, I'm angry. That probably won't ever go away.
Eva Rowe is also struggling to cope. More than a year after the explosion, she still can't come to terms with the loss of her parents.
It's really hard, you know, not having either one to lean on. But I'm glad that they're together. I wish I could still have both of them, but I couldn't pick to have one or the other. I'm very glad they're together.
Since the explosion, BP has set aside more than $1 billion to pay compensation claims. 6 workers, including the original supervisor, have won libel actions after the company wrongly blamed them for the disaster. BP has appointed a new site manager in Texas City. It's relocated its trailers and has started replacing blowdown stacks. The company is now carrying out a total overhaul of its global operations in hopes of averting tragedies like the Texas City oil fire.